Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema Podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com. Thank you for listening to the podcast, whether it's through Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, or whatever app you listen to podcasts through, or the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel. Thank you also to my subscribers at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema. I know series such as Leaving the Collection and Life Soundtracks have been slow to start back up, but I hope to continue them soon. Regardless of how you take in my thoughts on movies, music, and more, I'm always very grateful. So I had a gap in recording episodes with guests, so I figured it would be good to fill in with a mini episode reflecting on the podcast and one particular trend that I'm leaning into this year with Sonic Cinema. I've mentioned before on the podcast that my favorite genre is science fiction. In this episode, I wanted to dig a bit deeper into why I love the genre and why it is an important one for me this year. For 2026 in Sonic Cinema, it began as I started to think about how I wanted to continue my Fascism in Cinema series. One of the first episodes I had an idea for was for a science fiction episode. That will actually be the next episode after this one, and as we'll discuss, there's a rich history of authors and filmmakers exploring fascist and authoritarian ideologies within the realms of the genre, and we selected 3 pretty great films to do that with. And then it was solidified with a trip my wife Meredith and I took. Last year for our 10th anniversary, I wanted to do a simple weekend trip for the occasion. One of the places that Meredith had wanted to go to was Roswell, New Mexico. That felt right. Between her love of the TV series Roswell and of aliens in general, it made sense to do that. And I was curious to go as well. As we went through the museums and attractions, I was fascinated to see what they had going on in this city, and I also thought that my mom would have enjoyed it too. There are some things we didn't quite get to, but was a great weekend to ourselves. The speculative nature of whether we're alone in the universe and whether we've already been visited made leaning into science fiction this year make more sense. If you've followed Repertory Review this year so far, it is very much leaning into covering science fiction films exclusively. A lot of them have been and will be new to me watches, while others are long overdue movies to review on this site. I'm leaning more into the former, and I cannot wait to see where it takes me throughout the year. Also this year, I'm diving into Rod Serling's original Twilight Zone series, and I definitely want to be discussing that later in the year, whether it's a quick take review or whether it is a larger podcast episode. And so we come to the question, why science fiction? The reason has gotten more complex as the years have gone on. Of course, as a child, I enjoyed the Star Wars trilogy, The Black Hole, The Last Starfighter, Short Circuit, and what I saw of Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Starman. My speed was stuff like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Flight of the Navigators, and War Games. It wouldn't be until I really fell deep into movies that I would watch more mature offerings like Escape from New York, Blade Runner, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. As you can see by the films I chose, movies about brave heroes and misfit characters were more my speed. Eventually, Metropolis, Alien, and the original Planet of the Apes movies would cross my path, and my love of the genre only deepened. At that point, it was about bold visuals, complex themes and narratives, and experimental soundtracks. Hell, for one course in college, I wrote about the use of electronic music in science fiction scores. And by that point, I believe I had had the idea for my 2001. I had already written this track Beyond the Infinite, but I think I had already had the ideas that became the album Beyond the Infinite. By the time I graduated, the genre was far and away my favorite, and whenever I got a chance to watch a new film in the genre, I tried to make a point of doing so and do so to this day. science fiction films have led me to science fiction writing. I've picked up Arthur C. Clarke's various stories about the world of 2001, the Pierre Boulle novel Planet of the Apes for when the 2001 film came out, and I started to read Isaac Asimov's robot books as Alex Proyss's I, Robot was getting ready for release. Over the years, I've also picked up Brian Aldiss and Phil K. Dick books, as well as other books that have been turned into movies like Stanislaus Lem's Solaris and Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. Science fiction is unique in that it gives us a window into the world we live and the people we are, as well as cautionary tales of where the world might be headed. As remarkable as the technological advances we've made as a society are, it's quite honestly kind of flabbergasting how many billionaires have decided that the technology in sci-fi should come to life, as if we don't have ample examples of why that tech should not exist. Whether it's the space opera of Star Wars or the dystopian world of 12 Monkeys or Dark City, the spiritual journeys of Stalker and AI, or the visionary sights of 2001 and Arrival. The action-fueled thrills of Total Recall, the grounded adventure of science fiction, the family-friendly pleasures of WALL-E, or the psychological thrills of Seconds. The genre has been bent and twisted in multitudes of directions over the years, and I'm always excited when I'm exposed to a new example of it bending and twisting into different directions. I'm actually kind of grateful that I had the chance to watch Phil Lord and Chris Miller's Project Hail Mary before recording this episode. It's adapted from the novel by Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian, which was also adapted by Drew Goddard and turned into a terrific film by Ridley Scott. Hail Mary is a film that got to everything that I love about the above films and why I'm so excited about the genre in general. Before I wrap up this episode, I wanted to give you a list of 10 science fiction films that I think are underrated and deserve a bigger audience. Those are Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days, which I discussed on the Female Gaze, the Film Club podcast, which I will link to here. George Nulify's The Adjustment Bureau, Pella Kagerman and Hugo Liuja's Aniara, Princeton Holt's 2050, which I recorded audio commentary for. Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain, Kokonada's After Yang, South Korea's Alienoid Duology, Douglas Trumbull's Silent Running, and Alex Proyss's Knowing, which I recorded a Patreon-exclusive episode with Jason from Binge Movies on. And that was a lot of fun. And he is going to be my guest on the science fiction episode for Science, Fascism, and Cinema. Thank you, as always, for joining me for the Sonic Cinema podcast. I hope this shorter episode was insightful and entertaining for you, and we will be getting back to our regular scheduled programming next time. For now, you can find us at patreon.com/Sonic Cinema, various podcast platforms, including the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel, and finally at www.sonic-cinema.com. Thank you very much.